Hi, I'm Darrell. I'm a businessman who owns a chain of coffees. I'm a petrolhead who likes fast cars. I enjoy watching Formula One and driving on my custom racing simulator. I'm interested in acquiring a new car.
Hi, I'm Robbie. I'm a salesperson at Vroom Central. Sir, how may I help you?
I'm looking to purchase a car. I'm a huge fan of Lamborghinis, especially the Aventador. Do you have anything of those?
Yes, we do. You are looking for the LP700-4, right? We do have one in stock. Let me show you. As you can see, this model is still entirely in factory condition. Its previous owner did not even start his engine. This car was shipped directly to the owner's house, where it was stored as the centerpiece in the living room. In other words, there is zero mileage and all parts are in mint condition, original from the factory.
Wow, you sure there was only one owner and that dude had never driven a car before? This is my first sports car purchase, and I do not fancy driving a car that has many miles on the gas pedal. If this is true, it's an incredible find. I have seen the listing online, and it's impossible to find a Lamborghini Aventador that has never been driven before.
I'm telling the truth, man. This car is brand spanking new. I don't know why this nutcase bought this car as a showpiece for his living room. I think some folks got too much money lah. Would you like to get it? Going price is SGD 2 million including COE. I can throw in free maintenance for 2 years on top of that to give you a peace of mind to enjoy the car. It's a seriously good deal, considering that you are getting a car that more or less just rolled off the production line. I can guarantee that the thing works despite being a living room showcase. Our mechanics had inspected the car, so we are sure everything works.
Sure, but can we do an installment plan for payment?
Alright, no problem. We can work out the financing.
Darrell bought the car, and these are the terms agreed on by Darrell and Robbie as representative of Vroom Central. Over the course of the next 2 months, Darrell takes the car out on frequent drives. He also frequently goes to a racetrack in Malaysia to put his car through its paces. One day, while speeding along the racetrack, the Lamborghini sputters to a halt. Darrell had to have the car towed to Vroom Central's maintenance shop. The mechanics inspected the car and informed Darrell that the entire engine would have to be replaced along with the transmission. However, Vroom Central would not cover the cost of the replacement, which comes in at $500,000. Darrell is furious and calls Robbie.
Hey, what is it? I thought the contract says I'm entitled to free maintenance.
But the contract does not say that we will cover the cost of the replacement parts. Are you sure you can read English?
Bro, that's not cool. You promised me free servicing for 2 years.
Hey, we all know what the contract says, yeah? Anyway, my mechanics also tell me that you have been driving like a maniac. Who even clocks 100,000 km in 2 months? Also, the mechanics had to check the car's onboard computer. They tell me you have been driving in a way that would shock any Formula One driver.
I've had enough. You'll be hearing from my lawyers.
After this conversation, Darrell asked his lawyers from Yappers LLC to send a letter to Vroom Central demanding that they adhere to the terms of the contract. A week later, he received a bill from Vroom Central, along with a letter. This is what the letter said. Dear Darrell, after consultation with our lawyers, we have been advised that you are not entitled to free servicing pursuant to the contract. That is because the wear and tear sustained was the result of you driving like an absolute maniac. Please pay us the sum of $50,000 for professional servicing fees. If you wish to have the engine and transmission replaced, that'll be $500,000. Please be reminded that your monthly installments for the car remain payable. We're expecting payment of the next tranche later this month. Thank you.
This letter made Darrell livid, and he came to us at Yappers LLC to seek legal consultation. Darrell wants to sue Vroom Central for a breach of contract and wants to stop paying for the monthly installments. At Yappers LLC, we will first examine the clauses of the contract to ascertain if Darrell would win the case, and see if there is a possibility of terminating the contract to allow him to stop paying the monthly installments of the car. First, we will ascertain if there is a breach of the first portion of Clause 3. The first portion of Clause 3 states that Darrell is entitled to free servicing for the car at Vroom Central's maintenance shop free of charge for a period of 2 years. This is a clear promise made by Vroom Central, which legally obliges them to provide free service for the specified duration. However, in their letter to Darrell, they stated that you are not entitled to free servicing pursuant to the contract. And you need to pay the sum of $50,000 for our professional servicing fees. This constitutes a direct breach of Clause 3 as Vroom Central has refused to provide this free service to which Daryl is entitled to under the agreement. Their refusal to perform, together with their demand for additional payment, amounts to a repudiatory breach, as it demonstrates a clear unwillingness to fulfill contractual obligations. Therefore, Daryl is not legally obligated to pay the $50,000 professional servicing fee due to it being a breach of contract. Next, we will need to ascertain if there is a breach in the second portion of Clause 3. The second portion of Clause 3 states that Vroom Central shall provide maintenance for any wear and tear reasonably incurred as well as any defects discovered by the buyer within 2 months of the purchase date. As we interpret this portion, 2 issues arise. Number 1, does the word maintenance include the replacement of parts? Number 2, is Vroom Central obligated to provide free maintenance or do they just need to provide maintenance?
As we interpret the term, considering the plain language, the word maintenance is defined as the process of keeping something in good condition. We could also bring in relevant extrinsic context to ascertain the objective intention of parties interpreting the expression of maintenance used by them. The 3-step rule by Zurich Insurance states that extrinsic evidence may be used as long as it's relevant, reasonably available to all contracting parties, and is related to a clear or obvious context. In this case, the relevant context is the conversation that was held between Robbie and Daryl, whereby Robbie stated that the maintenance would give Daryl peace of mind to enjoy the car. Therefore, the word maintenance could be interpreted as per its definition, where the replacement of damaged parts is included under maintenance. This is because the replacement would effectively ensure that the car continues to operate in good working condition, allowing Daryl to have peace of mind to enjoy the car, knowing that any breakdown would be fixed by Vroom Central Maintenance Workshop, whereby the exclusion of replacement would not fulfill the promise and inspection alone is insufficient to maintain the car in good condition. Hence, the replacement of damaged parts falls within the reasonable meaning of the word maintenance. Another issue might arise when one brings out a point that focuses on the term Vroom Central shall provide maintenance, whereby we need to ascertain if Vroom Central is legally obliged to provide free maintenance services or just must provide maintenance. Given that both parties have reduced the contract to writing, in reference to Clause 7 which states that this contract contains the entire agreement between the parties, the parole evidence rule would normally be invoked. However, extrinsic evidence may still be adduced to interpret ambiguous terms in the written document, provided it passes the 3-step test in Zurich Insurance. Robbie's oral assurance to Daryl, I can throw in free maintenance for 2 years on top of that to give Daryl a peace of mind to enjoy the car, fulfills all 3 conditions of the test. First, it is relevant as it directly addresses the parties' understanding that maintenance was to be provided at no cost. Second, it was reasonably available to both parties, having been explicitly raised in their discussion. Third, it relates to a clear and obvious context, namely their shared understanding of the term. Accordingly, this serves to assist in clarifying the intended objective meaning of maintenance under Clause 3 as being free. Furthermore, since in this case, Daryl is the consumer who has no legal knowledge and Vroom Central is the provider of the car, it is almost certain that Vroom Central are the ones who drafted the contract. Therefore, any ambiguous term, in this case the extent of which maintenance is offered, is interpreted against them, based on the contract per foreign term rule, Hudson vs. Trafalgar Insurance.
Let's look at whether Daryl's use of the car amounted to unreasonable wear and tear. The facts show that Daryl only used the car for 2 months, and more importantly, this was a Lamborghini Aventador, a sports car with a 700 horsepower V12 engine designed for high-speed driving. Daryl is a petrolhead who bought this car specifically to enjoy its speed, and he often drove it on the racetrack. This should be seen as reasonable use because he was using the car exactly as intended. It would be unjust for Robbie to deny Daryl free maintenance simply based on his subjective view that Daryl used the car too aggressively. Therefore, Daryl does not have to pay Vroom Central for the cost of replacing the engine and transmission. Did Daryl really drive 100,000 kilometers in 2 months? Robbie and the mechanics claim that Daryl drove 100,000 km in just 2 months, but is that even possible? Driving 100,000 km in 60 days will mean covering the distance from Singapore to Thailand every single day, which amounts to about 21 hours of driving a day. Daryl is a busy cafe owner. It is unrealistic to think he had the time or the capacity to drive that distance. So the more reasonable conclusion, and in fact the only reasonable conclusion, is that the car already had mileage before it was sold to Daryl. It could be argued that the accumulation of mileage on the car before it was sold to Daryl caused wear and tear on the engine and car parts, which would explain how the car broke down.
In conclusion, there's a repudiatory breach of Clause 3 because of Vroom Central refusal to perform their legal obligations, whereby they did not want to provide servicing for the car and refused to replace the car engine for free, in which Daryl is entitled to free servicing and free maintenance given that the breakdown was caused by reasonable usage as stated in Clause 3. Next, we'll move on to investigate Clause 4. Clause 4 states that Vroom Central warrants that at the time of the purchase, the car is defect-free and that all parts are in good working condition. What exactly does this clause mean? We could bring in intrinsic evidence whereby Robbie told Daryl that the car had 0 mileage and all parts are in mint condition and original from the factory at the time of contracting. This could help us interpret the term defect-free and good working condition as it passes the Zurich Insurance 3-step test. Therefore, the car not being 0 mileage could be interpreted as a defect at the start. From Daryl's understanding, he was buying a car that had equivalent of brand new parts. However, the car broke down in just 2 months and can be assumed to have had mileage on it at the start. Therefore, we could say that there's a breach of Clause 4 as well. Now, moving on to the termination of contract. Here at Yappers LLC, we will need to ascertain if the term breach is a condition, a warranty, or an innominate term, whereby a breach of a conditional term will allow Daryl to terminate this contract. Applying the condition warranty approach from RDC Concrete v Sato Kogyo, we can classify Clause 4 as a condition. The car being brand new and defect-free was clearly essential to Daryl's decision to purchase a Lamborghini. Robbie reassured him multiple times, stating that the car had 0 mileage, was in mint condition, and that it just rolled off the production line. It is reasonable to conclude that Daryl would have never entered the contract if he had known that the parts were defective. Therefore, a breach of this condition would entitle him to terminate the contract and stop paying for further installments. However, Vroom Central may argue that the damage was caused by Daryl's excessive driving. In rebuttal, their claim that he had clocked in 100,000 kilometers in 2 months is physically unrealistic. To clock anywhere close to that distance, he will need to drive from Singapore to Thailand every single day, which is simply impossible given Daryl's work commitments. Therefore, the breakdown must have been due to defects already present in the car rather than Daryl's action. Even if Clause 4 was not considered a conditional term, we can still terminate this contract using Situation 3B of the RDC Concrete v Sato Kogyo. Under the modified Hong Kong Fur approach, we could conclude that he was deprived from gaining the substantial benefit of the contract. Daryl bought the car thinking that it was in good condition. However, the car broke down in just 2 months. Daryl bought the car to save time through speedy commutes with his fast car. However, he wasted time bringing in the car for servicing and finding for other modes of transport. Lastly, Daryl bought the car for personal enjoyment. However, instead, Daryl got stressed over the car breaking down, which had caused him great mental distress.
Now moving on to legal actions that we can take. Here at Yappers LLC, we recommend Daryl to terminate the contract for breach using the aforementioned methods. For one, we can use the conditional warranty approach, or we can use the Hong Kong Fur approach. Through the termination, Daryl will be able to stop paying for the monthly installments of the car. What are the consequences of termination? Daryl would eventually lose ownership of the car due to the nature of the contract being a hire purchase agreement, evident by Daryl's regular installments paid to Vroom Central. The car is technically not Daryl's until all installments are paid fully. Due to the high value of the car, the large depreciation of the car due to the mileage clocked, Vroom Central will most certainly dispute Daryl's attempt to terminate. However, there is room for mediation, as Daryl has reasonable grounds to sue Vroom Central for breach of contract. Due to the high cost of the legal process, it can be recommended that both Daryl and Vroom Central firstly undergo mediation and try to negotiate a settlement. Possible settlements may include covering the maintenance of the car on Vroom Central's side. We estimate that due to the convincing nature of the evidence provided, Vroom Central will rather aim for settlement rather than go to litigate.